I mean, life's not Old El Paso. We can't always have both.
Both, yeah.
Where is the flat-bottom taco in this situation? I don't know.
The World Swimming Body makes a bold call to ban transgender women from elite female swimming. Did it make the right call? Plus, Greens leader Adam Bandt removed the Australian flag from his press conference, saying it was a symbol of Indigenous dispossession. A mark of respect, or so woke you'll choke? And the wash-up from TV's Night of Nights. Who won and who deserved a bit more recognition? I'm James Law and this is Flash Drive. Georgie is once again taking a week off, a well-earned break, so I've got my friend, Deputy Editor from news.com.au, Liz Burke, to join me. Welcome back, Liz.
Thank you.
Thanks
Didn't
for
get
coming.
cancelled after the first episode.
You
Pretty
didn't.
good.
You didn't. You did very well, so thanks for coming back. Let's dive into it. So one of the most controversial decisions of the week was around FINA, the World Swimming Body, its decision to effectively ban transgender women from women's events at the elite swimming level. The decision means athletes who are born male are eligible to compete as women only if they can establish to FINA's comfortable satisfaction that they have not experienced any part of male puberty or before the age of 12, whichever is later. Many have welcomed the decision, including Aussie Olympian Kate Campbell. This is what she had to say on the issue.
It is my hope that young girls all around the world can continue to dream of becoming Olympic and world champions in a female category, prioritising the competitive cornerstone of fairness.
So Liz, that's kind of the way it's come out, you know, that FINA has made this decision to put fairness over the notion of inclusivity.
Yeah.
Do you think it's made the right call?
Oh, look, it's so tricky. I still don't know. To me, this is one of those decisions that you just want to leave to the experts. You know, so many people have opinions. You want to leave it to the people who know the effects of, you know, different hormones and things. But it seems like even at that level, there's just isn't enough consensus for it to be like a blanket respected expert decision. But I think Kate Campbell made some really good points when she was talking about that inclusion as a cornerstone of sport at all levels. And then at the same time that one of the other cornerstones of sport is fairness. And so I think she really nailed why the decision and this debate is so tricky by talking about the incongruity of those two issues. Like, they don't always work neatly together. You want every decision made about sport. You want everything that, basically you want everything behind a sport to satisfy those two criteria, that it's fair and that it's inclusive. But it seems like in this decision, we can't have both. And that, you know, there are some people who are really militant either way. They want transgender people to be not included in sport at all, or they want it to be, you know, for athletes to be able to compete as whichever gender they identify with. But I feel like the majority are just saying, you know, why can't we have both? Why can't it be inclusive and fair? And it seems like we can't get there. I mean, life's not Old El Paso. We can't always have both.
Yeah.
Where is the flat-bottom taco in this situation? I don't know.
I know, it'd be nice if there was one. Well, look, it's interesting what you have to say about the grey area around it, because I think a lot of people look at it and apply common sense and just go, men, women, there are biological differences.
Totally.
But you know, I think you're right in that there is a bit of grey area. Here's what former AFL player and representative handball player Hannah Mounsey had to say on this issue.
Look, it was an interesting one. Sort of came from nowhere. Normally you hear about these things a bit beforehand, but a blanket ban is very, very strong and I think really unnecessary, because it's painting something which a lot of people have acknowledged is a very grey area and decided that it's black and white. And it's a really difficult place to be in, particularly deciding that basically if you haven't transitioned by the time you're 12, you can't compete. All I can say is it's interesting. It's not great. Trans people are never included in the discussion really when it comes to policy debate or anything like that. And so until we are, athletes who, look, are excellent at what they do and are being asked for an opinion, but I don't think they really know what they're talking about a lot of the time, and nor should they. You know, if I wasn't trans, I wouldn't know what I'm talking about either. And that's not an expectation on anyone. But I think we need to take it with a grain of salt when we listen to those sort of opinions.
Yeah, so Hannah there is saying that there is some grey area. So FINA said in its decision making it did make the call based on science, but I've been reading some stuff that came out in the wake of the decision, including from an Aussie trans health expert who said that the jury is still out in terms of the scientific basis of this, whether or not transgender people have a advantage, you know, because simply there aren't enough of those athletes and not enough research has been done.
Yeah, of course.
So, you know, if it's still in doubt, is it the right decision to segregate those people into their own category or to kind of continue to include them? I don't know. It's sort of a bit
It's so tricky. It seems like something that's going to probably be reviewed, you know, a dozen times, and we'll have different information in 5 years' time, 10 years' time, 20 years' time. The other concern that I think Hannah expressed as well is how this is going to affect sport at all levels. Because if that's the decision that's for now been made, you know, at the elite level, at the Olympics, Commonwealth Games, whatever, I think, you know, the sport can accept that if it chooses to, but you don't want it to affect kids in high school. You don't want it to affect, you know, if someone is 10 or 11 and they're, you know, deciding that they want to basically devote their life to a sport, which is at the, you know, kind of the stage so young, but the stage that a lot of young swimmers do, because you do reach those elite levels by the time you're like, you know, maybe 16. So, you know, that could even affect a person's decision whether to transition or not. It could affect their decision whether to keep participating in sport or not. It could affect their health. It could affect their mental health. It could affect, you know, basically everything, the way that sport is run. And I know that that's the argument of a lot of people who are really strongly for this decision. And I don't want to, you know, I don't want to kind of lean that way. I'm kind of more interested in the inclusion side. But yeah, it's just so tricky. You just don't want it to be affecting people, particularly children, who it doesn't have to.
Yeah, and I think it's important for people to realise that, you know, this decision was just about swimming and just about the elite level.
Yeah.
So really they weren't making any judgment calls about the sport in general or how this decision should, you know, be seen as a precedent for any other levels of swimming. So I think it's important for people to remember that.
Totally.
And also the thing about that there's very few examples of people actually transitioning and wanting to still compete, you know, as a woman. That they're very rare. You know, Leah Thomas is the really famous example, but they're few and far between. And even in the lower levels of sport, it's not very common. And so, you know, thinking back to the Warringah candidate, Katherine Deves, and how she made this a big election issue, but to me it was always a beat up because it's actually really rare, and that sports clubs at community levels have done a good job at managing this in-house without it having to become a big national issue or indeed something that there needs to be really stringent rules about.
Yeah, and that seemed to be with that debate when it was when that candidate was basically trying to push it as a big election issue. I feel like the you know, the majority reaction to that, the public opinion was basically like, nah, this is not the issue that you're kind of trying to make it.
Yeah, and I think that the election result in Warringah really proved that.
Exactly.
Exactly, yeah. I think she was roundly dismissed. Yeah. The only other thing about this is that FINA has committed to establishing an open category. So this would mean that the people who are no longer able to compete as women would be able to be in this open category, and also that men who are interested in being in this category could participate there. Is that good for inclusiveness, or is that actually really segregating these people into, you know, the also ran category?
Yeah, it's one of those things. I want to leave it up to people who know better, because you don't know how it's going to play out. Like, how many people are going to enter this category, or are people just going to be discouraged and go do something else? Are people going to, you know, somehow take advantage of it, and you know, if they have a better shot in this open category, would they enter themselves there rather than whatever other category they're you know, they're eligible for? it seems like a sensible solution, but yeah, it's like with everything else with the decision, there's so few test cases. You just need to see how it plays out.
That's it. And like you say, I think let's keep listening to the experts, listen to the science, and continue to navigate this with respect. I hope that's what people do.
It's the decision for now, but I don't feel like it's the final decision. I mean, I don't want this debate to keep going. It's exhausting and kind of, a lot of it seems unnecessary. But I feel like it's something that's going to keep cropping up and going to continue, and a decision that'll be reviewed over and over again.
Okay, we'll be watching. Remember, Flash drivers, if you love the podcast, let us know. Subscribe on your favourite podcast app, leave a review, and tell your friends. Spread the word. Liz, on to other matters now. Greens leader Adam Bandt caused some controversy this week when he decided to remove the Australian flag from behind him when he did a press conference and just leave the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander flags only. When asked why he did this, a spokesperson said, "For many people, this flag represents dispossession and the lingering pains of colonisation." So it's fair to say that Mr. Bandt's move has been slammed among a lot of the commentators, and even Indigenous MPs have called it divisive and unhelpful. Here's what Prime Minister Anthony Albanese had to say.
Reconciliation is about bringing people together on the journey that we need to undertake. It's undermined if people look for division rather than look for unity.
Liz, what do you think? Was this a mark of respect or too woke by half?
Look, it's the intention is a mark of respect. But yeah, this one's not for me. I'm not really a massive supporter of this decision. I do think it's unnecessarily divisive, but that's obviously part of the intention as well, right? They know that they're doing something controversial and they want to draw attention to it. So, in that way, I guess it is a mark of respect. It's achieved probably the reaction that they want. Maybe Adam Bandt didn't want as much criticism, particularly from those Indigenous MPs. But yeah, I think I would rather see than a protest or a stunt like that, perhaps a more effective, more considered campaign to have the flag changed. If you want to make some change, like, put together a considered argument. That's what I feel. I don't feel like I'm hearing that much from the Greens. So I feel like that would be a more sensible way to go.
Yeah. Well, look, to Adam Bandt's credit, this wasn't just stunt. He apparently does this a lot, and it's not the first time he's done it. So I wasn't aware of that. I think this might have been just the first time it was noticed. But you look, I tend to agree with you. I think the Greens, they did better than usual at the last election, and I think a lot of people wanted to give them a go because of their green policies. That's their brand. But I feel like they really do themselves a disservice when they take these kind of positions that to a lot of Aussies seem quite extreme. Because although there probably is a discussion to be had about the flag and about whether it is representative of the Aboriginal people, I mean, it's not. There's no symbolism on the flag that represents our great Indigenous past that goes back 40,000 plus years. There's no recognition of that on the flag. But, most Aussies really love the flag, not because of the symbolism on it. It's because of the fact that we take it to the Olympics and because we fought wars under it, And so by giving respect to the Aboriginal people in that sense, you're actually kind of discrediting a whole lot of other people who love the flag. So I feel like he did himself a disservice here and probably damaged the Greens brand at a point where it's being seen by many people as more mainstream.
Exactly. And it's that, it's that mainstream thing that I guess they're trying to embrace in one sense, but also push against, because that, in part, that's kind of not really what the party has traditionally been about. But there's the argument that, you've been elected to represent the Australian Parliament. You've been, to the Australian Parliament, rather, to represent the Australian people. The flag is a part of that. So, it does seem kind of, on one level, sort of disrespectful to your constituents, to the voters who have put you there for that purpose, to represent Australians under this institution, that obviously there's going to be parts of it that Adam Bandt and that other people don't like, but it seems like it's kind of part of the package. And I'd just like to see, probably a more considered discussion about the flag, because there's kind of, there's changes to be made. It kind of just doesn't seem like it's on the agenda at the moment.
Yeah. Well, I mean, here we are. We're talking about
Exactly.
it. Maybe this is what he wanted. I mean, this made me think of some other stories that came out during the week that, for fear of getting cancelled again, that to me just felt a little bit too woke.
Yeah.
One that caught my eye was Tom Hanks came out and sort of in this interview voluntarily said that he would not take on the role of the gay lead character in the movie Philadelphia today, saying people wouldn't accept the inauthenticity of a straight guy playing a gay guy today.
Yeah.
What do you make of that? Isn't it acting?
It's yeah, we don't actually think you're this person.
Right.
I think the key part of what he said is that people wouldn't accept it. It's not that he doesn't want to do it. I think he would just be thinking about his career and his reputation and getting into controversies. Like Tom Hanks, least controversial celebrity I can think of. And I would think that, he would want that to remain his brand. So I feel like, some people, will say, it's going too far. Like, are you going to say that, if I'm not going to play a pilot in the next movie because I haven't actually got my fighter pilot license or whatever.
Tom Cruise became a fighter pilot.
Fair. Okay, well that's something that we can address. But yeah, I feel like he's kind of more thinking about what the reaction to that would be these days. You wouldn't get that, 10, 20, 30 years ago. So yeah, I feel like it's maybe he's not being so woke. Maybe he's just thinking of not wanting to get cancelled.
Yeah, but to me, that's worse, right?
Yeah,
the reason to make that decision should be because you really care about this, or you care about, again, inclusion and or giving gay people a platform or something like that, not for fear of getting bullied on Twitter. The other one that made me laugh this week was Emma Thompson, also another celebrated person, copping heat for donning a fat suit in the new Matilda movie where she's going to play the matronly headmistress Trunchbull. So there's been Twitter discussion that, it's like really bad because it's taking the role of fat actors.
Yeah, that's silly. That one is too far.
That is too far.
And are they saying that someone else should have got the role who's more suited to that? Or was there ever the raising of the discussion that Emma Thompson should have actually put on the weight?
Put on the kgs.
Yeah.
No. I think they were saying that, that should go to a fat actor.
Yeah,
and they use that word fat actor
Yeah.
in the tweet. And I'm like, that's probably not the way they would want to be. Plus-sized actor.
Oh, who can say? But I think, I think costumes should still be allowed.
Okay.
I think that's fine.
As long as you're not putting on blackface.
Exactly.
We'll allow
like
it.
we do, we'll draw some lines, but I think fat suit's fine. I think losing weight for a role is fine. I think if you want to play a gay person, sure, but if you don't want your career to suffer for it, then that's also okay. I don't know.
All right.
I'm not the acting police. I want to leave this one to the Academy or whoever as well.
All right. Love hearing us unpack the biggest headlines of the week. Well, make sure you follow us on the socials. We're at Flash News AU on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube. Get on it. Liz, are you ready for some glitz and glamour?
I am.
Good. Well, the Logies were back this week. I think they were off for 3 years because of COVID, which, how did we get through?
Devastating.
Devastating. But funny man, Hamish Blake, he won the Logie, the gold Logie, the big gong. Here's what he had to say.
It has been a really weird last couple of years for the TV industry, really tough. I know I speak on behalf of everybody here when I say, we're so grateful to get to do what we do in this room. We know we're super lucky to keep working. We know we're super lucky to have got to keep working and to do what we love, and we really couldn't do it without the people that are watching at home. And if you're watching this, you're an insomniac, but if you're also somebody that supports Australian TV, and we would not be here without you. So thank you to the people at home. Thanks very much, everybody. Have a good night.
Yes, who doesn't love Hamish Blake? I think his speech was like post 11 p.m. when he actually got the gong. So that's the joke he was making. Liz, did you watch?
I didn't make it. I was so excited for it. I watched the red carpet. I watched, all of the Instagram posts in the afternoon of people getting ready. I reckon I fell asleep on the couch after maybe 3 or 4 awards. I'm sorry to say I did not make it to Hamish's speech.
Well, I did, and I tell you what, it was a slog. Like, I think that with the red carpet, I think it went for like 4.5 hours or something ridiculous like that. It's like, who's producing this? There were so many awards that could have been cut or done in a little package. It was like 10:30 and they're handing out the awards for the best documentary, and it's like, no disrespect to documentarians, but like, what are we here for?
Is it because all of the most talented people in TV are in that room on the piss, so maybe no one's really policing the quality of the broadcast?
Maybe. No, but I've spoke to some people who were there, and they were like, they had the same feeling because they want to let us go. They want to go party, which is fair enough.
Yeah.
It was a bit of a slog. Hamish, do you think he was a worthy winner?
Oh yeah, I think it's a popularity award, right? He is, one of a kind. He's so funny. His show, I don't know if it's the biggest rating, but like, I watch it occasionally. I couldn't care less about Lego, but it's good fun.
It's about Hamish. Yeah,
exactly. Look, I'm a Sonia fan. Would love to have seen Sonia Kruger take it home. But to be honest, I never watch her shows either. So,
well, Sonia, I mean, she hosted I think something like 6 shows on Channel 7. They are getting their money's worth out of her.
Yeah,
so I thought she deserved a look in.
Yeah.
Look, the other thing that's come out that was controversial was an uproar over Neighbours, which was famously axed this year after 37 years on air. Now, Ryan Melody, who plays Toadie, and let's refer to him for the rest of the podcast as Toadie. Exclusively as Toadie. He went on radio and he had a bit of a complaint about the way the show paid tribute to Neighbours on its final year on air.
It was incredibly disappointing, their package that they put together. And I mean, I kind of watched it and went, oh, okay, so Neighbours has just been summed up by a whole lot of food being dumped on people's heads. And as you say, I mean, Daniel and Nat are just absolutely gorgeous people, and absolutely nothing against them. But we've got people who have been on TV for nearly 30 years each, and I think probably the least they could do is actually just kind of, get us to actually say something. I mean, it's been a massive... We're in the bloody Hall of Fame. I mean, if this is how you treat people, a show that's in the Hall of Fame, then, good luck to the Logies, really.
Toadie not holding back.
Fire up, Toadie.
Fire up, Toadie. I mean, people do like to make fun of Neighbours.
Yeah.
And to be honest, when I saw, because I was still up, I saw the package that they played to... a little montage to pay tribute to Neighbours, and they did it was literally people throwing food on other people's heads, people dying, explosions. It looked like the most ridiculous parts of the show's 37 years smushed into 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And look, I know everyone makes jokes about Neighbours, but it's an iconic show, and it has given so many people jobs over decades, launched the careers of countless Hollywood big names. Did it deserve more respect than it got?
Look, it is disappointing. Neighbours is massive. It's probably one of the most iconic shows on Australian television. But yeah, it's just it's one of those things that people love to make fun of. So it's a little bit funny to hear it being discussed so earnestly. Another thing that Toadie said in this interview. He was talking about, he compared it to the In Memoriam segment. And the point that he was trying to make was actually a really valid one. He said that in that segment, we're celebrating people in the industry who've died in the past year, or I think in this case it must have been the past 3 years since the show hasn't been on for a little while. But he said that there were so many people celebrated in that segment who were on Neighbours, or who worked on Neighbours. So, that kind of shows how important and how iconic it is. But then he slipped in this little comment at the end saying, and they got a better Guernsey than us. And you kind of want to pull him aside and say, Toadie, Jared, Ryan, whatever we're going to call you. Neighbours is really special to a lot of people, but these people actually die.
Well, has Toadie died now? Maybe Toadie will die in the final episodes.
My Neighbours knowledge ends about 2002, 2003, so I can't tell you. No.
Yeah, like I feel like most Australian families were either home and away families or Neighbours families. Which were you?
I was Neighbours family big time. Same. We named our family dog Bob after, I think maybe it was Toadie and Sarah's dog. Did they have a Bob at one stage?
I think they did. Yeah.
But he also brought up the home and away thing. He said that the home and away cast actually acknowledged to the Neighbours cast that, you know, they didn't get a fair look in at the show. So I thought that was nice. It's good to see, you know, these two Australian institutions supporting each other. But have you seen one of my favourite takes about this whole Neighbours ending situation? There's been, you know, lots of petitions and things to keep it going. Now fans calling for Neighbours characters to move to Summer Bay.
Toadie just shows up and goes, yeah, wow. Yeah.
Or like Lou opens Lassiter's Summer Bay, or semi-retired Carl goes and sets up a little practice. I love it.
Yeah, well, you know, maybe that would get me onto Home and Away. Yeah. I haven't really ever watched that. So, yeah. Okay.
That could be Toadie's next campaign.
If Toadie goes there, I'm watching. Yeah. Where he'll get the respect he deserves.
Exactly.
Liz, this is the part of the show where we like to give a plug to Flash. So for people who don't know, Flash is the news streaming service where you can go on there and find any news you want. We create some of our own content in-house, but we also have some of the biggest names in the global news space. We have the BBC, we have CNN, we have Al Jazeera, all on there for anyone to come and check out. This week I just wanted to point out a really interesting doco that we've got on the platform called Putin's Obsession, The Fight for Ukraine. And this is a new documentary that kind of really digs into the psychology of why Ukraine is important to Putin and to Russia in general. And it's sort of really, you know, I think a lot of people look at that conflict on the other side of the world. It has obviously ramifications globally, but like, what's it all about? Like, why is this so important to him? And it really kind of breaks it down in a kind of interesting psychological way about why Ukraine is his obsession. So I'd recommend people check that out.
Intriguing.
All right, we've come to the end. Liz, thanks again so much for coming onto the podcast. We'll have to get you back again another time. It's been a great pleasure. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you. That was good fun.
All right, we'll see you soon. All right, we'll be back next week. Georgie will be here. Until then, you can check us out on Flash at flashnews.com.au.